At least that's the one thing you could really control. And all the external factors, the stuff that happens to you outside of the relationship, it's harder to control.
Right.
So control what you can control so that you can deal with the external factors that are thrown at you. With COVID, it's kind of like there's no really any place to escape.
You can't run away from your problems now.
Yeah,
right?
you can't. Versus like before, let's say you have an issue with your spouse or significant other or family members, you could easily just go to work and sit there.
Yeah.
Or you don't have as much time to face those issues.
The foundation was already shaky from the get-go.
Yeah.
And this just kind of exposed what was wrong
Or
that didn't get addressed.
yeah. Hi, welcome to the Magnetic Mismatch show. This is Linda.
And this is Will, and we had an earthquake yesterday.
We did.
Did you get scared?
Yeah.
I feel like we were panicking a little bit.
You didn't know what to do.
It makes me nervous now when we have earthquakes because we haven't had like a big earthquake in such a long time.
Yeah, it makes me nervous with every shake because I'm like, oh, what's the aftermath? Or
Yeah.
Is the big one coming?
Right.
I get super paranoid.
Especially out here in California. And what was funny was neither of us reacted very well like we should have. Like all the earthquake drills that we had when we were kids went right out the window.
Yeah, we did not get underneath the table. We were just standing around waiting for the second wave.
It's like, oh, it's the earth is shaking. Cool. Just standing. It's like,
No, we were freaking out.
Don't tell them about that. I was crying. No, I was kidding.
It's like, can 2020 bring us something else? It's like
You're just waiting for like, what's the next thing it's gonna throw at us,
yeah,
right?
it's like, please give us a break.
Seriously.
We're sorry.
Whatever it is that we did to you, Mother Nature, please.
We apologize.
Oh, global warming, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, so our topic today is it's a fun one actually.
It is.
I think we're gonna have some fun talking about it.
Yeah. Can external factors make or break a relationship?
Whoa.
So we came up with this topic, or it kind of crossed our mind.
You did, because you're such a curious soul, man. Like, I don't know how your mind works, but
That's because I think I watch reality TV shows, and to me it's always like interesting how the producers kind of manipulate the situation.
they kind of control the environment.
Yeah, and it kind of changes their the behavior or the outcomes. But what was interesting to me is that I thought about like just two hypothetical couples, but we all know of stories, similar to these situations or scenarios where you have one couple who has everything going for them, right? Money is not an issue. Their family friend adores them together. But then yet, for some reason, they can't make it work. They fall apart. Whereas you have another couple who has everything going against them, right? Money is an issue for them. They could barely, keep up to pay the rent or put food on the table to support themselves or sometimes their family. It's just like life is very hard on them. But then yet you look at them and they're just so happy. So it makes you wonder and ask yourself, what's the difference between, these two couples? Like, one has all the favorable conditions and one has, everything going against them, but then yet they can make it work.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting observation too. Like, I never really looked at it like that or that deeply. I mean, we know people for sure. We all do, right? That kind of fall in those categories. And then you kind of wonder for sure, like, what is it? What's the difference? Is it all the external stuff, or is it the internal stuff within the relationship between the two people? So what if we could manipulate the environment or the situation in a way where you can kind of imagine playing like an experiment, right? If you had this magical wand, what would you be able to do with that?
Yeah. So let's say this magical one, like if the couple is fighting over money, right? And I can just wave the wand, money is no longer an issue for them. The question I was asking Will earlier is that do you think that couple will survive
We'll
or
be
will they be
happy.
happy? Not just survive, be
Yeah.
happy.
Like, yeah, exactly. Be happy and actually thrive. Because what's crazy is, especially with money, that's the number one reason that people get divorced, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
And it's the biggest topic that I think people, especially in relationships, fight about. So it is kind of interesting when you think about, well, what if money was no longer an issue? That wasn't the external factor that was potentially, according to that couple, maybe causing those arguments or those fights or that rift in the relationship.
See, that's the question, right? Would the argument over money go away? That most likely yes, right? Because it's not an issue anymore. But will they pick on something else to fight about?
I think that that's probably going to be a yes, because if they're fighting over, well, damn, maybe I spoke too soon, huh? I don't know. I guess my initial instinct would be that if somebody is fighting over money and that's the only thing that they were fighting about, and let's say they fight in a way where it's very nasty too. It's not just like we disagree on stuff. It's more
Yeah.
like we're screaming and yelling at each other.
Yeah.
I feel like that if they and money's not the main thing they're fighting about, they're gonna find something else to fight about. I don't know. Am I crazy?
No, I get it.
I mean, maybe I'm making too many assumptions, but that's my initial reaction is like if you wave that wand or whatever, and now all of a sudden they won the lotto or something, right? And now it's like, whoa, hey, they're both wealthy and they'll never have to worry about money again. I feel like there would be other issues within that relationship that go deeper than just the external factor of money,
Yeah.
or they'll find other things to argue about.
Yeah. I mean, people always say money is the cause of, the relationships falling apart, whatnot. But
Yeah.
but
Is it really?
but is it really? Because you look at someone who won the lottery ticket, right? You hear, and yes, I was watching a documentary of people who won the lottery and they lost it all. So not only did they lose the money, but they lost all of their relationships as well. So if you're saying, like a lot of people, yeah, they're saying that money is the root cause of the relationships getting destroyed. But if I rained millions on you and the relationship falls apart,
It wasn't really about the money.
it wasn't really about the money. It was more the foundation that you had. The relationship was rocky at the start. Right? So here in that scenario, you can see that, the external factors,
You don't think it was the issue. It was the real issue.
yeah, may not be the real issue. It could be an internal thing. But then yet, the interesting question is that what if you have you know, a couple who gets along really well and they're super happy, but every external factor was going for them, right? They're just like easy peasy. Money's not an issue. Family's not an issue. Friendship is not an issue. Everybody gets along. But let's say if I start putting obstacles in, will that destroy the relationship though?
Whew. I mean, every couple, of course, is different, right? And I think it comes down to how they normally deal with issues, how they deal
But they
with
don't have
problems.
any external issues.
So you're saying they're perfect.
I'm not saying they're perfect, but I'm saying externally. I'm gonna give them everything,
There's
Everything.
nothing for them to complain about, you're
Yeah,
saying.
exactly.
Like all their needs and everything are met
Yes.
from an external
But then
standpoint.
suddenly,
But then what would you throw at them? Give me an example. Like what would you throw at this perfect couple?
let's say I
What would you change?
start putting temptation towards their way.
Okay. What
Yeah.
kind of temptation? Like spouses or
Yeah.
so like romantic? Meaning,
Romantic. Yeah.
So
I'm
let's
gonna
say
put a hot, sexy guy and a hot, sexy girl
Mm-hmm.
in their way, in their path.
they come into their life.
Yeah. They're working together every single day now.
Whoa, okay. And so your question would be like, how would that change the dynamic? Like, how would they behave differently?
Yeah.
I mean, people will get tempted, right? It's one thing to be tempted, but then it's still another to act on it.
Yeah.
So maybe in that situation, it is interesting because it expose like how strong is that relationship. You know, what is holding that relationship together in the first place?
Yeah. Because I'm thinking maybe like the external factors, it kind of amplifies the issues that you have internally.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, like let's say if jealousy was never something you struggled with, right? Even if I did throw, a 10 at you, it wouldn't bother me because that was never an issue.
But I already
to
have a
begin
10. Why are you laughing?
That was a good one, but corny. But I'm moving on.
I'm trying to get some props, all right? After this podcast.
Okay. Hashtag no team Will. Hashtag team Linda. Anyway, as I was saying.
So you threw a 10 at me.
Yeah, I
and
threw
then
a
what?
10 at you. But jealousy wasn't an issue in our relationship. So I don't know if I would.
Would you get jealous?
No.
You wouldn't get jealous? Like if
No.
I worked with a 10 out of 10 all day, I spent a lot of time with that person,
Yeah.
you wouldn't be jealous.
No.
But maybe that wasn't the original, right?
That
So
wasn't
from
the-
an internal aspect, that was already something that was strong. You're
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah. So that wouldn't bother me.
Okay. But maybe, so think about this then. What about like, okay, maybe for that specific external factor, you're playing like this creator guy, right? And you're able to change these external factors or throw external factors at people. And so what if instead of changing that thing, because maybe that is not something you're insecure about, but maybe something like something different, like another external factor changes, like our financial security, for example. And let's say that for you, let's say financial security is really important, but all of a sudden we lost our financial security and you didn't know that that's what triggers you, for example. Do you know what I mean? Like, because you
Yeah.
guys have never, this couple, hypothetical couple, has never had to deal with that financial insecurity. And all of a sudden, when they don't have money, for example, all of a sudden it creates this tension that they didn't even know that they would have.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Is that
Yeah. So basically, the external factors,
created a rift maybe, or like some tension?
some tension. But I think it's how well you two can resolve that issue, right? It's like kind of like playing a game. If, together you can help. It's kind of like those mazes, right? If together you two can escape the maze together.
Oh my God, like that movie,
Which
the
movie?
one we watched together where like,
Oh, yeah.
what's it
yeah.
called?
Maze Runner? Is that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right.
That movie was good.
You didn't even think it was going to be good.
No, I thought it was going to be corny, but it turned out really good.
You actually enjoyed it.
I did. But yeah, let's say you can, together and work together that issue, which is comparable to a maze, right? To get out of your financial issue at that moment together. then I think that'll strengthen your relationship. But let's say, an external factor is thrown at you, but you can't work it out together, then I think that will hurt the relationship.
Well, yeah, it would hurt the relationship. So
Yeah.
would it would that be cause for would it be okay then? Let's say you throw that same scenario where everything is perfect with this couple, right? Externals are all good, and then you all of a sudden take away one of those things that's important to that couple, and now they're having to deal with adversity basically, right? And let's say we've never argued before, but now all of a sudden we are arguing every damn week. And so would it be okay for one of the people to decide, you know what? Even though we've been married for 10 years and we've never had any arguments like this before, or we've never had to deal with this specific factor, let's say the money one, right? I went bankrupt, for example, let's say that. Could the other spouse have the right to just walk away and not try to work together to figure out the solution?
I think it's always a choice to be in a relationship. No one forces you to be in that relationship. You have to do what's best for you. So every day that you're together with someone, it should be a choice.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a question you have to ask yourself. But that brings up an interesting point. This perfect couple who's getting obstacles thrown at them, and if they're questioning if they should be together, it shows that maybe their foundation is not as strong as they thought, right?
If is like you throw one little thing at it and the whole thing crumbles, it's kind of like, was that relationship that strong to begin with?
Yeah, but sometimes I think like the external factors helps strengthens a relationship as you go through the obstacles together.
Give me an example.
An example, let's say like with us. Right?
Uh-oh. Maybe I shouldn't have asked that question.
Like with us, right?
Okay.
Like in the beginning of the relationship, you and I, we were struggling a lot with money.
Yeah.
Right? We had a lot of money issues because we
were both broke, basically.
We didn't have money.
Broke college students, basically. Well, you were still going to school.
I was still going to school.
Like grad school, right? So
yeah. And you were just newly starting your career.
Business. Yeah.
So we didn't have money. We wanted to do a lot of things. We wanted to go to a lot of places.
We wanted to travel.
We wanted to travel. We wanted to dine out. But we just couldn't afford to do so. But then together, we were determined as a couple to change that situation for us.
Yeah. So take a step back. When you're talking about the money issue, yeah, we didn't have a lot, and I think that caused some tension in our relationship. Wouldn't you agree? In the beginning, at least.
Yeah.
Because we couldn't.
We were frustrated.
That's
we were frustrated because we wanted to travel. I wanted to see the world. Yeah. I wanted to, dine out at the cool, quote unquote, cool spots in LA.
Yeah.
We wanted to do a lot of things, and then I think it's like that stress of like not having money too. It's like for basic necessities, right? That puts a stress on the relationship as well.
Yeah, because you're both worrying and stressing about something, and even though like you and I didn't directly like clash as often about the money itself because we were both broke, it's kind of like, who are you pointing fingers at? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was more kind of like, because we're both stressed about money, or we didn't have the resources to do the things that we want, we were usually in like a bad mood, or you weren't thinking clearly. You're preoccupied. It didn't allow us to move forward in the relationship with other things.
Yeah. But I think that
forced us to put our heads together, I think.
Yeah. But I think that that stress, the external stress, helped force us to put our heads together And
Well, we came up with the solution, right? We
solution.
planned
Yeah, we planned on how, what we need to do
to overcome
to
that
overcome
obstacle. Yeah.
this obstacle. And, the fact that we were able to resolve the issue, it made us stronger because now we know as a
Yep.
couple together, we're stronger than, being by ourselves.
Of course. Yeah. And that kind of reminds me too that even before we had early on in the relationship, issues with the money aspect, it was also like just being together. I think not everybody in our social circle was accepting of us being together or wanted us to stay together or to date, right? And I think that caused a lot of stress in the beginning of our relationship too.
Yeah.
And that's where those were big external factors. It had nothing to do with us because you and I we were very happy, when it was dating, and we didn't go on that many dates yet, but we felt like there was a connection, and we felt like there was no issues between you and I. We got along very, very well.
Yeah. So let's backtrack a little. So what
Yeah,
had
go ahead.
happened was, Will and I, we were dating, right? We kept a low profile because we didn't know if, it was going to go anywhere. But once we decided that we wanted to make things official and move forward with our relationship, that's when we got some
Pushback, yeah.
pushback,
Yeah.
right? Like from external factors. And this was when it was right off the relationship was still new. We didn't have much of a foundation to build on.
No,
It could have easily crumbled
it
us.
could have ended right there.
Yeah, it could have just ended right
Yeah.
there, and we would have never gotten married. But I'm surprised how mature we were. I am not going to
Right?
lie.
Yeah.
I am so surprised that we were mature enough to talk it through with each other instead of dodging the situation.
Yeah.
Because
It was very uncomfortable.
yeah, because here we are, new
Early 20s.
early 20s, new in this relationship or wanting to move forward, and then we have people opposing us and was very strong about it. And now we have to make a decision. Should we move forward or should we end it there?
Yeah. But like you said, it was you're right. The fact that we actually confronted the issue together by kind of talking to each other, right? We didn't dodge or avoid it or ghost each other,
That would have been easier.
that wasn't a thing yet, but yeah, that could have been totally the thing we did. But we were very mature about it, and we discussed it. I do remember us talking about it quite often and kind of deciding like, well, how do you feel about the situation?
Yeah. Keep in mind, we talked about it for weeks before we decided on going forward with the relationship. That's the
Right.
conclusion we came up with, is that we wanted to take a chance.
Yeah. We kind of weighed the pros and cons, and
Yeah, and then, the reason why I was so open to talking to Will about it was because I didn't want him to be left hanging, thinking, where would this relationship have gone, right? If I didn't just disappear.
yeah. I think for me, I looked at it more, maybe I didn't label it this way, but I looked at it more like you and I, there was chemistry. There is chemistry. And I felt like there was the kind of chemistry that I never had with anybody else before dating you. And when that happened, and recognizing there's outside parties or outside things that has nothing to do with the relationship between you and me, trying to break that apart or to keep us from being together, that was kind of why I decided I want to take a chance on it, because I felt like it was worth it. Because if we eliminate the outside external factors, the relationship itself between us was really good. And that's why I had confidence to move forward with it, and I wanted to proceed with that going forward. I didn't want to let outside factors dictate how I would live my life. I guess that's kind of what happened there.
Yeah. Yeah, and it definitely I think, you know, they say what doesn't break you will make you, or is it the
What
other
doesn't
way?
kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah, doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I think
Yeah.
that's what kind of happened with us, because we got thrown this like obstacle, right? Huge obstacle early on, and that stress continued
For over a year,
through
easily.
easily through our relationship. But the fact that you and I were willing to work through it, right, and dealt with it together, made me feel like, oh, we can work through
Issues and
issues together,
yeah.
right?
You're right. I think it gave, for me personally, like a lot of confidence that whatever life throws at us, the very fact that you and I can come to the table, put our heads together as adults, being very mature,
Yeah.
right? And talking through it to come up with a solution instead of, maybe complaining about, oh, why is this happening to us? Or, getting mad at the external factors that we have no control over. You can't control, what other people say or think. You
Yeah.
can't control what happens in the economy or the world or, whatever. And I figured, if we can always approach whatever we face in that manner, we can get through anything.
Yeah.
And that's what gave me more and more confidence the longer we've been together. And I mean, we were dating for almost a decade before we got
Yeah.
married. So I'm very confident because of the fact that we've been through so much adversity in our lives together prior to meeting each other, but also after being
Yeah,
together.
because we had a very rough start, right? Because money was an issue right off the bat. We didn't have the full support that we were hoping for.
Yeah.
And another external factor we had to deal with was, Will was building his career, so long hours,
The time aspect.
the time
We didn't
aspect.
have a lot of time together at all,
Yeah,
even during the dating phase.
so whatever issues we had, we kind of had to be efficient at communicating and kind of resolving that, because if not,
Right.
it'll be left unsettled.
Yeah, that I totally agree with you there, because now that I'm thinking back to it, when we had our crazy schedules, and we're talking about, you were going to school, you were working, you were volunteering on the weekends, just very little free time, and I was working on my business, 60 to 80 hours a week, and so we had very limited time for each other. And especially because, like you said, we didn't have a foundation yet.
Yeah.
We were just getting to know each other, just starting the process of dating. And we still made sure that there was time in our schedules every week, of course, to see each other, but it was very limited. So if there was an issue and we got into an argument or anything like that, and we didn't resolve it or talk about it or confront it, that could linger for a whole week.
Before we get back to it.
Yeah, before I see it. And who knows, maybe there is no next week, right, in that relationship.
Yeah.
So I think that with those external factors happening, it forced us, like you said, to be more efficient, and it forced us to really learn to be strong communicators with each other, and to be able to articulate, kind of our thoughts, and just be honest with each other, because we didn't want to waste each other's time, right? We didn't have time to waste.
Yeah.
So you're right. I guess in our situation, the external factors, even though they weren't positive ones, they actually helped build up and strengthen our relationship to what it is today. And again, we're not perfect, far from it,
Far from it.
but I could proudly say that we've grown so much since we started first dating,
I would hope
11 years
so.
ago.
I would hope
Yeah,
so.
I mean, I know it's silly, right? Like, I would hope in 11 years or whatever that somebody would have evolved or grown, but you'd be surprised, a lot of people stay the same, or people refuse to grow, or they're stubborn, right? And they don't move forward. And if that were the case, I guess, when we're talking about relationships or dating, that probably wouldn't have worked out anyways. It
Yeah.
wouldn't have lasted that long,
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
So I think well, this is just my opinion and solely my opinion because I didn't have a lot of like long-term relationships before
compare,
to
yeah.
compare or to draw out from experience. But I think if you strengthen your internal relationships or the
Factors,
relationship internally,
So like, what do you mean by internally?
like internally by communicating with each other, resolving issues together, working on your plans together,
Being honest,
being
I think.
honest, yeah, all of those stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
Just to build that core,
Right.
Because that's the one thing you could really control. And all the external factors, the stuff that happens to you outside of the relationship, it's harder to control.
Right.
So control what you can control so that you can deal with the external factors that are thrown at you.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like in real life, you don't know what's gonna get thrown at you.
No.
You don't. Look at this whole like COVID situation. Nobody saw this coming.
No one saw this coming.
And the crazy thing is that how many relationships have fallen apart during this time, right? We saw some statistics of like people getting divorced.
Increased all over the world.
Yeah. And it's kind of like, was it COVID, or were there underlying issues or things that were already not shakeable. I meant like the foundation was already shaky from the get-go.
Yeah.
And this just kind of exposed what was wrong
Or
that didn't get addressed.
yeah.
What are you thinking?
I'm thinking that with COVID, it's kind of like there's no really any place to escape.
You can't run away from your problems now.
Yeah,
right?
you can't. Versus like before, let's say you have an issue with your spouse or significant other or family members, you could easily just go to work and sit there.
Yeah.
Or you don't have as much time to face those issues.
Yeah, I think we avoid them.
Yeah,
right?
but now a lot of more and more people are working from home.
You're with that person all day long.
Yeah, so you're with that person all the day long, and now you're forced to face those issues. And if you haven't built that, good communication with each other, or how to resolve that issue together, whatever problems it is, it gets intensified because you're stuck.
Yeah, it's kind of very telling, right? I think where you're getting at is, as a couple, do we have like almost like a process or a system, to deal with external factors, to deal with issues? How do we react and how do we handle things normally? Because it's like nobody out there is going through life with like, oh, I have no problems. Like I don't deal with anything, right?
Yeah.
That's not the real world. The real world is we all have problems. We all have stuff we deal with.
But I think it builds some confidence too with each other. Once you resolve one problem, it makes you feel like, oh, I can resolve something else or something bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Well.
Yeah, that's where I was saying that like within our relationship, I feel like that's where we've evolved and we've gotten stronger is through how we handle things. And I feel like how we handle things now versus how we handle things 10 years ago is also better and more efficient as well. Mm-hmm. And so that gives me a lot of confidence going forward too, knowing that we we have a way to deal with stuff as they occur, because things will happen, you
Yeah.
know, and it's how you react that's going to matter, and that's what truly reveals your character, you know, and you have a strong foundation so that no matter what happens, you're good. You guys are going to be fine.
Yeah.
So that's kind of your thing, your advice for young couples or couples out there in general, from personal experience.
Yeah. Is to work on the foundation together,
Yeah.
right? And then, take the external factors as challenges to strengthen your relationship. It's kind of like a muscle,
Yeah.
right? You have to work on it.
Right.
The more weights you put on that muscle, the stronger it gets. And I
Yeah.
feel like that's
And
that's-
repetition.
yeah, and I feel like that's the same with a relationship, right?
Yeah.
The more the more difficult the problem is, or the situation is, and if you're able to work through that, you'll learn from it, and
Yeah.
you'll get stronger as a couple.
Yeah, and I think one thing I took away personally too is just learning to not run away from the issues, or not trying to escape from the issues. I guess that's something I learned growing up, but you know me, I like to try to solve those issues at that point. But
Yeah.
like as a couple, that's what you need to do, I think, is don't pretend those issues don't exist, or don't not like ignore them for too long, right?
Yeah.
Like we were saying, you know, that's what COVID exposes, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. Any other last words, you think? Any other additional takeaways that you think can be helpful?
No, I don't think I have any other takeaways, but other than, work on the problems, don't ignore it.
Yeah.
If you ignore the situation, it gets worse, and it gets built and, like,
It
problems
gets harder to
yeah,
deal
and
with.
problems builds on itself.
Yeah, it compounds
right?
itself.
Versus if you face the issue together, it'll build confidence, and
Oh.
it'll make you stronger. But
So it's kind of like using those external adversities to your advantage.
yeah, and I think the power of being in a relationship is knowing that it's your choice to be in the relationship,
Yeah.
right? So you're in it because you want to be in it. And I think,
Hopefully.
yeah, or I hope so.
Yeah.
Or that's something you should remind yourself, right? It's that you're in it because you want to be in it. So, that's just something to ponder and reflect on, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting one for sure to just think about and
Yeah.
mull and marinate, discuss it. You know, if you found this topic interesting, make sure to discuss it with your spouse or your friends or family. You know, I think it's a
Yeah.
cool topic
Yeah.
to think about. And so I think that's it for us. Go ahead and make sure you follow us on our Instagram and YouTube. We're at Magnetic Mismatch, tongue twister. And we're also on our Apple Podcasts. So if you enjoyed this podcast, give us a 5-star rating and a review.
Yeah, make sure to share our content with your family and friends. And we release a new episode every Thursday.
Cool.
Until next time, bye.
Bye, guys.